You've got to be kidding me. Well, hey y'all, welcome back to Doug's Cars. I have been waiting a long time for this vehicle. I wanted to be able to bring this one to y'all for a long time now. Here it is, one of my favorite vehicles of all time. One of the greatest SUVs of all time. The Jeep Cherokee XJ. This is a 2000 Sport, and it is in really nice original condition. These are getting very hard to find like this. They've either been cut up for off-road vehicles, they rusted away, or these were family transportation. No one saved them. And they made a ton of them, so you'd think there's quite a few still around, but there aren't that many around anymore. I actually was messaging with a friend this morning who was working on one as I was getting this one ready to film today, and I realized there just aren't that many around. This is one of the greatest SUVs of all time. Why? It ushered in the usable, medium to small size SUV that people come to use all the time now. Now, whether or not SUVs are great now, that's debatable. The engine faces this way. It was available in rear-wheel drive. This isn't a modern SUV, but it was made until the modern era. This is a 2000. These came out in 1984. They were designed by AMC with some help from what we then called Renault, or Renault, if you're in Europe. And the fact that they made them this long is amazing, and a testament to how amazing these things are. They're a great size. They're about 165 inches long. This has a 4-liter straight six, which came in the majority of them over the time period these were made, with 190 horsepower, which doesn't sound like much now, but when they put that engine in these, it was. And these things can move. They don't weigh very much. I had one of these in high school and college that my mom bought new. This one is actually a facelift edition that came out in 1997 or so. And, you know, they didn't change a whole lot. They did give it double airbags, which of course were necessary for safety at that point by then. But this vehicle was made pretty much the same for its entire lifespan. Unheard of. Although Jeep did it all the time. You've got, the CJ, the CJ5, CJ7 were made forever with the same body style until 1987 when the YJ Wrangler came out. The SJ, full-size Jeep, also was made from 1963 to 91. It was the last consumer vehicle available in the US with a carburetor. This was sold in 1991 with fuel injection, 190 horsepower, way more than that Grand Wagoneer had. This, however, is the second generation Cherokee. The first generation Cherokee was actually a 2-door model based on that Wagoneer. Those were available in the late 70s up to when this came out, with the 360 V8 and the straight six that was carbureted at the time, the 4.2 liter. This is the 242 4-liter with fuel injection. These cars have just been so popular, and they sold so many of them that when the ZJ Grand Cherokee came out for the 1993 model year, this was supposed to be replaced by it. But they sold so well and made so much money for Chrysler that they kept making these with just minor changes from year to year. What a great vehicle. Now, before we take this for a drive, I'd like to point out a few things. This really is a good sized vehicle. I had one of these in college, and it's great for a single person. It's not too big, it's not too small. You can fit people in the back seat. It's not very big. It does fold and tumble. You pull the bottom part up, and then the back folds down completely flat. It is not a split folding rear seat. This is not how things were done then. But these modern ones do have driver and passenger airbags. They've upgraded the window switches. They used to be like along the door panel flat, and which is which, I don't know. But these actually have little lights in them now. You still have the old school light switch here with 2 things, and then of course, when you have those 2 D10s on, off, parking lights, headlights, you turn it this way once and it turns on all the interior lights. Little Easter egg you probably didn't know about there. It's a fairly complete package. This still has the same engine as the 1991 model that I drove. Little tweaks here and there, but basically the same power, just some emissions things were changed. It drives exactly like I remember my 91 did, but it's a little bit upgraded on the inside with a more modern interior. Still has some of the same issues. The speaker wires in these like to break in the door here, and honestly, the power window on the driver's side only likes to function when it feels like it. Hey, That's funny. There's a Gladiator driving past. Very cool. Now let's take this one for a drive. Ah, that noise takes me back. Safety first. I enjoy driving these so much. Ooh, the soothing amber glow of the check engine light. And then, of course, because of this small issue here, got to shift with these. All right, into drive. Yeah, this is just a really nice vehicle. It's a straight six. It's 4 liters, which, you know, is twice as big as most engines are nowadays. But in order to get the kind of power to motivate a vehicle like this at the time, you had to have a decent sized engine. And it actually replaced a 4.2 liter straight six that was in the Wranglers and the XJ full size SUVs as well, which had something like 112 horsepower, which, you know, was just not enough. One of the things that I'm reminded of when I put the turn signal on right there to turn out of this parking lot, this is a Daimler Chrysler vehicle when Daimler-Benz owned Chrysler. And one of the things they did was kind of cost cut a bit in a lot of things. And this turn signal is a great example of it. You know, they upgraded this interior. And it's not soft touch really. There's a little bit in the door maybe, but that wasn't really the point of it. It's durable. That's what this vehicle's supposed to be, a durable off-road vehicle. They made this turn signal stock like hollow in the back with these ridges in it that you can feel with your finger every time you use the turn signal. Now, I agree with Doug DeMuro. The best turn signal ever is the early 2000 E39, E53 BMW turn signal. That goes without saying. But this just feels really cheap. I mean, you feel this all the time. Unless, of course, you don't use your turn signal. I know plenty of those people out on the roads. But if you use the turn signal regularly, you're not going to want to feel that. It's just, here we go again. Turn signal. It's just not a joyful experience. But I digress. This is a fairly pleasant place to be. You've got full gauges, amps, oil pressure, temperature, obviously fuel, attack, things that you need. This, of course, is the automatic. They did make a manual transmission version of, which I've never driven. I would love to, but that's just not happened. You've got rotary knobs for the HVAC system. Fairly straightforward. I mean, obviously, these all have air conditioning. I mean, I can imagine they probably didn't make any without air conditioning by 2000. Would have been unheard of. But you got a really, really base 2-wheel drive, 2-door, or something like that. The stereo has the CD player and tape deck. So you've got 2 out-of-date systems for playing music, in addition to the AM/FM radio. So no satellite, of course. No aux input. And, yeah. These little tiny buttons you need a pen for to change the clock, which is why the clock is not accurate. Who came up with that idea? No, that's a terrible idea. If you don't have a pen, you're always going to be late. So it's a really nice place to be. You've got kind of the luggage fabric on the interior. Mine was similar. Obviously, you could get top trim levels with leather and things like that, like you get in a Grand Wagoneer. This is the Sport, so this was actually a fairly basic model. It has the blanks on the steering wheel where the cruise control buttons would be, but it's got power windows and locks, power mirrors, does not have a power seat or a power antenna. Yeah, that was the thing. Although I don't know if power antennas were available by the year 2000, but my 91 definitely had one. That was more a product of its era, though. They just were more common then. Power front disc brakes, drum rear brakes. It's got coil springs in the front and leaf springs, or as the Brits would say, cart springs in the rear. But it actually rides fairly comfortably. It's not a bad place to be. It will easily do modern highway speeds, and you're not going to be, you know, fighting with it or feeling unsafe. It is square, and it does move around in high winds. And of course, you know, this one's got 104,000 miles on it, and it's 20 years old, so it creaks and rattles a little bit, but not too badly considering. You could still drive this every day. People do. You just don't see as many anymore because they've either become hardcore off-road vehicles, which is fine, or, you know, they've just gotten too expensive to maintain. The cool thing is, these are actually becoming fairly expensive to buy. To find one in this kind of condition, you could be looking at like a 5-figure sum, and you know, I don't blame people for doing that. This is a really good car. This one is owned by a friend of mine. You've seen some of his other vehicles, such as the Buick Roadmaster Estate Wagon and the Jeep Grand Wagoneer Wooderson on some of my other videos. And this one's currently living at my house, and I did a little bit of work to it to get it cleaned up and got it out here for this video. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and well, it's Thanksgiving weekend here in the States, and I had the time to do that because I really wanted to dedicate a bunch of time to this vehicle. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of the vehicles I know a lot about just off the top of my head because I had one for so long and it was always something that I liked. Is it a dream car? I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's a great car, and I cannot recommend these highly enough. If you need a solid axle, fun vehicle for off-roading or for just getting around town, I mean, you can parallel park this thing anywhere. The rear window's right there, and you know where the back of it is because the tailgate is only like 4 inches in from the bumper. So parking this thing in town is a breeze, even without parking sensors. Imagine that. It's just a good overall vehicle. Now, if you have a family with 5 kids, it's not going to work. But if you're single or 2 people and have a dog or something like that, there's a reason they made these for 17 years. People kept buying them. And you know what? I bet if they reintroduced this right now, people would buy them again. It's just a solid, honest vehicle. I might be in line for one. Look at all of the other vehicles that are being brought back right now. I mean, there's a Cherokee out right now. It's a Cherokee in name only. It is not a vehicle like this. You know, it's based on a Fiat. It's not going to have the off-road prowess out of the box that this has. Not at all. And this thing, you can see right here, this actually has the command track system, and you know, you've got the 4 positions here. It's a part-time 4-wheel drive system, which was available with the 5-speed manual as well as this 4-speed automatic. The select track system, which my Cherokee had, was a full-time system, so it had extra positions there, so you could actually leave it in 4-wheel drive at all times if you wanted extra traction. And this, it will not be happy if you drive it on dry surfaces or, you know, a regular road on a regular dry day. The select track system works like, you know, a Land Rover, except for the fact that the Land Rover is always in 4-wheel drive. You know, of course it'll use more fuel, but this one, you don't want to drive it on a dry surface. That being said, it's got a low range, which is something that the modern Cherokee doesn't have. Got some open road now. Here we go, 50, 55, 60. Yeah, it's noisy, there's wind noise. It's a bit of a raucous engine, but it's also a straight 6, so it has a great exhaust note. I mean, BMWs have always, well, all the straight 6 BMWs have great exhaust notes. And usually the straight 6 is a very smooth engine, and I must say this one is, except at idle and drive, and I'm wondering if it just needs some new engine mounts. It's very possible that that's the problem here. But I'm cruising along right now at 55 on this 2-lane country road, and everything seems fine. This vehicle does have new tires, which help. And it has tires like you don't see anymore. This is not an off-roader with low-profile tires. It's got like 6-inch sidewalls. That really contributes to a nice ride in this. Almost like an air ride suspension because you've got all that air. And then I just hit the brakes there for a light, and then accelerating, fine. And then see a cloud of smoke come out the back, so that's good. That would have been bad. Sorry, Reg. So, yeah, I mean, I would give these a look if you're in the market at all before they get too expensive, because vehicles like this are either going to be fully restored at some point and be prohibitively expensive. And the Grand Wagoneers you can buy for like $85,000 from Wagon Master, and would I love to have one? Of course. But that's way out of my price range. Something like this, if you can pick one of these up with 105,000 miles and put it away somewhere for a few years, I think you'll be in the money. Now don't come after me if you're not, because I'm not liable for that. I don't think. Is that part of YouTube? There's something about nostalgia, and this is a nostalgic vehicle for a lot of people who either grew up with it, as I did, and then had, well, the same one later on in life, or who were little kids in them even. I mean, these were made for such a long period of time that so many people have experiences in these. But a lot of nostalgic cars are terrible when you drive them, and this isn't. I'm so glad this is at my house for the foreseeable future, because this is just a fun vehicle to drive. Just if I'm just going to the store to pick up groceries. You know, I don't mind hopping this and driving it. It's fuel injected, starts instantly. It's not like Wooderson that also stays at my house, where you're never sure if that carburetor is going to fire up. Once again, Holly Sniper. For some reason, when they updated this vehicle in the 97 model year to the facelifted model, They also changed the tailgate from fiberglass, which is what mine was, back to steel, or to steel, I should say, since it wasn't steel to begin with. Not sure why. Maybe they cracked or something, but mine never did. It certainly doesn't make it any lighter. Well, y'all, I hope you've enjoyed the XJ Cherokee as much as I have. This vehicle takes me back in a good way. It's good, solid, honest motoring. And it's still viable as a daily driver in 2020. Four-wheel drive, it's got safety features. No, it doesn't have a backup camera, but I bet you could install one. So, thanks so much for watching. Please stay tuned for more, and please hit subscribe if you've not already done so. Have a great one.